Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of the fall season 2018 of the Bulletproof Entrepreneur Podcast. My guest on the show today is Dillon Kivo. Dillon is the founder and CEO of the Kivo Media Group. He's also the editor-in-chief of Kivo Daily. Dillon is a contributor to Forbes, Inc., Entrepreneur, Huffington Post, and a lot of other top-tier publications. As a thought leader, he contributes articles ranging from personal development to entrepreneurship to help people improve their skills as they are venturing into entrepreneurship. He helps organizations, especially millionaires and large corporations, bridge the gap between sharing their stories across from wherever they're creating it, so basically in the company, to major publications so that they can reach the masses and have mass appeal. He's also a member of YEC, which is the Young Entrepreneurs Council, which is America's most elite entrepreneur organization, and he's an all-around awesome guy. He's also going to be launching a course on how to get featured into major publications. So now, if you're interested in actually getting featured on the big four of business publications, I'm talking about Forbes, Inc., Entrepreneur, and Fast Company, this is the one guy you're probably going to want to sit down and take a lot of notes because he has a lot of wisdom to share in his experience turning people into thought leaders and placing them on these varied platforms. So I'm pleased to have Dillon on the show today to share a little bit more about his story. So Dillon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So Dillon, I alluded that I looked at your LinkedIn profile and as we were talking at the pre-chat, and there wasn't a lot in terms of your background or your origin story. So before we talk about what you're doing right now, tell us a little bit more about your origin story. You know, where did Dillon come out from? Were you like training for 7 years in the woods somewhere?
Yeah.
And then you just popped out?
It's kind of funny. So I grew up in Southern California. I've always been a hockey player my whole entire life. So, a lot of people say, business and athletes do a lot of good things together because they take their, hard work and, work ethic, basically into the business office. So that's exactly kind of, where I come from. I grew up in California playing hockey my whole life until I was about 18. And I got asked to go play in Virginia. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. I'm finally going to get a shot. I've always wanted to go to the NHL. This is going to be a perfect opportunity. Long story short, played in Virginia for about 2 to 3 years. And then I got a really, really bad injury. So I had to figure out, oh my gosh, what's next? And so, as a kid, it's been always, my dream to just continue to help people. And so I was like, firefighting is the perfect opportunity. I can help people. I can serve the community. And, obviously, it does pay the bills. But after doing that for a couple of years, I decided, maybe there's some bigger, I don't want to say better things I can do, because obviously helping the community is the best thing you can possibly do. I was like, I'm only working 9-10 days a month. What else can I do? How else can I, help, bring some money into the family and just kind of help out around the house and stuff. So I started, searching, and, my father-in-law, Chris, actually showed me about, web development and everything, digital marketing in general. And as soon as I discovered, online marketing and PR, I completely fell in love with it. I landed my first client actually through my father-in-law. And this guy, he's literally, his business, I don't really need to say the name, but he's a multi-millionaire. He's for the last several years, he's been mentoring me. So he kind of took me under his wing, and, I started doing PR for him personally because he's a major thought leader in the MLM industry. And, my sole goal was to get him basically to be like as big as your like Neil Patel, your Gary Vee, Tony Robbins. And so basically I helped take him from where he was at to over, several millions of followers on social media. I got him to be a contributor to Huffington Post and started blogging on there. And then I noticed, holy crap, he's getting a lot of messages from people saying, hey, how can I get featured on Huffington Post? Where else do you write? What can you do? It's like, geez, I never knew there was actually an opportunity to make money writing on these big publications. Yeah. The interesting thing is when you write for these big publications, it's literally in your contract. You are not allowed to accept payment for any of the articles that you post. Yeah. So just say a client comes to me and says, hey, Dillon, I see that you write for Forbes, Inc. and Entrepreneur. How do I get on your feed? Well, it just doesn't work that way. So what I do is I have a lot of great relationships with editors, contributors, and a lot of staff members at all these big publications. So whenever I have a client, basically my job is to find the perfect fit for, the perfect contributor who writes, let's just say it's a cryptocurrency guru, right? Well, then I can kind of go through my big Rolodex of connections that I have and see, okay, this person would align, directly with this guy's, Forbes feed. Let me contact him and see if he wants to write about my client. And it's just basically, matching the two up. And so, the contributors are happy because they get great content from great influencers. And obviously my client's happy because, hey, he's mentioned in Forbes. He can put, as seen in Forbes, or even, I get people in Entrepreneur on a weekly basis, top 10 entrepreneurs to watch out for. So, yeah, I mean, I know this is kind of a long, drawn out explanation from how I got to where I am now, but long story short is I figured out very, very quickly that there's a lot of money in PR if you do it right, if you have the right connections. So I decided to put all my effort towards that. And, I kind of resigned from the fire department a while back because I figured out, really my whole journey of helping people wasn't necessarily, in the public doing works and helping out with burning buildings. It was more so helping them financially and helping them become a contributor and helping them become a thought leader in the industries that they're in.
Okay, awesome. When you're trying to write for some of these big publications, a lot of the times when people apply, they get rejected, and it's either because their writing is not kind of like the way the publication wants it in terms of the tone and style. So, what were some of the things you did to improve yourself before you were ready to say, hey, you know what, let me pitch to you guys and try and be a contributor?
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a great question. I get that asked, often. So first and foremost, growing up, I was an absolutely awful writer. I'll be honest. I was terrible at writing. So the first thing I had to do is, correct all the grammar issues that I had, and, just the simple, English style that I was writing. The structure was terrible. So I literally went back to college. I took an English course. I kind of just, so now I guess I'd say like a well-rounded writer, but so I wanted to get just back to the fundamentals of writing. So basically, after taking that course, I figured, okay, great. So now I have a foundation. How can I apply it to Forbes, Inc. and Entrepreneur? So what I did was, for about a month, I literally studied Forbes, Inc., Entrepreneur, and several other outlets. But most importantly, I picked one niche. So my niche that I write on across the board is always thought leadership, entrepreneurship, and marketing. So what I did is I basically, after, scouring the internet, going, looking at just hundreds and hundreds of articles, figuring out, okay, Forbes, what style are they looking for? Entrepreneur and Inc. And you really have to separate every publication because they really are entirely different. Just because you write for Forbes does not mean that Inc. is going to take you with, with arms open wide.
Yeah.
Your article in the flow and format has to really be structured in the way that the editors of Inc. are going to accept it. So really, I guess my biggest advice is just going through all of Inc.'s articles in your specific niche. Don't get outside of it because you really want to stay, in your swim lane. And then just focus the structure, see what type of topics they're talking about. And yeah, I mean, if people have any questions, if the best topics to write about, they can always reach out to me. I'm glad to your audience. But it's really finding top trends are really good to follow. So, for example, if you see something that comes out on Forbes, basically breaking news, but you have not seen it come out on Inc. or Entrepreneur or a big major publication, that's kind of like a trigger. Hey, maybe this is a topic that, so-and-so would also, like to accept, or, they would like me to write about this or whatever. But at the end of the day, connections are huge too. Obviously, everybody knows about LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn and Twitter are probably the two major social media platforms to really utilize when you're talking about anything that has to do with PR or publications or anything media related, because that's where they hang out. You want to go where these editors hang out. If you can build and basically forge really strong relationships. And it has to be a two-way relationship. You can't just contact an editor and say, hey, I have this article that I want to put on Forbes. Can you please place it there for me? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
That's the absolute last thing that an editor wants to hear. And honestly, even contributors too, because, I get pitched, I'm not kidding you, man, at least, 10 to 15 articles every single day. And the first thing that people want is for me to give them value. I don't know. I feel like it's the same thing with any relationship. You have to give value before you ask for value.
True.
Especially when you're talking to an editor at Forbes, the last thing you want to do is basically say, hey, give me before you say, hey, let me give you some value first and let's build a relationship. And hey, if you can help me become a contributor or get me featured on Forbes, that's a plus.
Yeah.
But having as many, connections with editors and contributors as possible is really how you win in this game. It's all about connections. There's no way around it.
You're a new kid on the block, you were a new kid on the block, and I'm sure there were a lot of people in the industry or in the space doing the same thing. How were you able to carve a niche for yourself and say, I'm Dillon Kivo, this is what I do this better than anybody else, and this is why I think you and I can work together to achieve your goals?
That's a really good question. So I'll be honest, a lot of PR firms, I don't like a lot of the traditional PR firm. I'm not a fan of. I'm kind of coming in here to disrupt the whole entire PR industry because I honestly, I know it needs to be done to get people placed in Forbes Inc. Entrepreneur. I get clients in billboards in Times Square, New York City on a daily basis. Like I said earlier, it's all about connections. I have all the connections that anybody needs to get placed in the biggest publications for the right price. A lot of these PR firms, what they do, and I'll tell you exactly what they do. They say, okay, so let's basically dissect the influencer or company brand and let's see how much we should charge them. They do two things. They analyze the client to see how much money they can get out of them. After that, they basically send them a proposal saying, we're going to do our best to get you into major publications, major podcasts, just like your own. But at the end of the day, half the time they don't deliver anything. So, you pay on a monthly retainer. Sometimes they'll lock you in 6 months to 12 months. Yeah. And you're locked in. And then at the end of the day, you're stuck with no press. The difference is when you work with somebody like me is I get the job done. So I'm here to make moves. If somebody says, hey, I want to get on Entrepreneur, I'll guarantee that they will get on Entrepreneur some way, shape, or form. So, and also too, like in the beginning, when I was not a contributor to Forbes Inc. and Entrepreneur, nobody believed that I was able to get them on Entrepreneur or Inc. publication. Because that's kind of like my own fault. How can I tell people, hey, I can get you here, here, here if I'm not there myself?
True. It's like a fitness trainer that is not fit.
That's a good point, man. So it's like, that's funny, yeah. So it's like when I'm talking to a client, if he's worth over $100 million and he's like, well, tell me why you're different. Just like the question you just asked, why should I hire you over the traditional PR firm here in LA or New York City? It's a very simple answer, because I can get you press. A lot of these companies, they really just talk. It's all talk and games, and they don't end up, landing you a spot anywhere. So, yeah, I mean, that's the difference is, hey, I write for these big publications. It's as simple as I know what they're looking for. I'm the editor-in-chief of my own publication, and it may say easy. It may, sound easy because it's like, of course, anybody can start their own publication. Yeah, that might sound true, but not anybody can start their own publication and within 3 months have, over 1 million views and over 1,000 contributors that write for them. And not only that, the quality of writers that even at, Kivo Daily, I have writers that write for Forbes, Inc. and Entrepreneur and all the other major publications. So I'm not just hiring people off Fiverr and paying them to come write for me. I have quality writers. So it kind of just comes down to I have my connections go far and wide in the industry of PR.
Oh, awesome. And as you just alluded to now, your publication grew so fast in 3 months. You have over 1,000 writers. So talk a little bit more about that, because I'm looking at the website now. First of all, it is elegantly put together and well done. It loads quickly. It's something where you want to actually stay and spend time. So talk a little bit more about how you built this publication from scratch, how you you already have a lot of connections, but how you were able to make it so attractive that people want to write for your outlet in addition to all the other big places they write for.
Of course. So basically, the way that Kivo Daily started is initially, like I said earlier, so I was a contributor for Huffington Post. Yes, obviously I had my client's account, but I also had my own. And so I remember this day. So in January of this year, everybody got an email that was a USA contributor saying, unfortunately, thanks for your contributions, but we're shutting it down for probably indefinitely. That's what we all thought. And they had over, don't quote me on this, but maybe like 50 to 100,000 contributors that wrote for Huffington Post. And it was an amazing platform. And I mean, it still is, but you know, it just got me thinking, so many people lost a lot of like the ability to get their voice out there to the public and in the business community. And, you know, I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I mean, ever since I was seriously like, you know, in grade school, selling candy at school and starting a t-shirt company and doing all that's a whole nother story. But so long story short, when Huffington Post went down, basically my eyes kind of just wide open and figured out, you know what, I don't want to put my you know, writing and, you know, opportunities to get my voice out there in the entrepreneur and business world. What I'm going to have to do is start my own publication. I'm going to have to grow it to be just as big as your Forbes Inc. Entrepreneur, so people actually take it serious. So it's basically, and also going through the process, you know, of an entrepreneur, it's not easy. Everybody knows that's a true entrepreneur, not somebody that, you know, calls himself an entrepreneur or CEO and, you know, has no employees. And basically, I never had that one-stop shop for entrepreneur advice that I could truly learn from. And, you know, hey, if I want to learn about, you know, my niche, it's just basically, like I said earlier, marketing and, you know, and PR and stuff. I never had that one platform that I could go to and learn everything and start from the ground up, you know, go from a hero. And so, yeah, I just basically said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to run with it. And within 3 months, we had, you know, like 1 million views and hundreds and hundreds of contributors. And, you know, it's the support that I've got from it's been ridiculous, because it's not like it's, you know, clearly it's not making $1 million a year. That's not what supports me. That's kind of when I go back to, like, you know, how can I help out the community? Kivo Daily is a really good way, because I'm able to help out not your seasoned entrepreneurs and, you know, veteran entrepreneurs that have, you know, that are multimillionaires that have been doing, you know, been in this game for, you know, 20 plus years. I'm able to help out that, you know, 16 to 20-year-old who's struggling and not knowing what to do with their life, but all they know is that they hate school and they want to be an entrepreneur. So that kind of like Kivo Daily is kind of grew from that. And, you know, obviously it's nice because I'm able to, you know, share this platform with so many people and invite people to do interviews and stuff like that. So it's really cool, man. I mean, it's a lot different than anything I'd ever expect. And it's, to be honest, I'm a little surprised that it's doing this well, you know, for so long, because it's like, dude, running a publication it's a lot of freaking work.
Yeah, well, I know. So, yeah, because I know one or two people that started, and even just to get the writers together, get the graphics, get all the back end working, photos, making sure it loads on time, it is a big hassle. So doing this in addition to doing your full-time job, I can imagine how much strain and pressure it put on you, and especially as it's growing too, because now you get people requesting to come on board. You have to kind of vet what they're putting on there, so you make sure that the voice and the tone stays the same.
That's exactly right. Yeah, man. It's cool though. It's been a really good experience though, because I see, you know, at the end of the day, it really helps out. Everything that I do encompasses, you know, press, because, you know, running a publication, well, now, you know, I feel as if I can relate to the editors at these big publications. So, you know, when people are pitching to them, it's like, you know, what do they want to hear? Because you know, for Kivo Daily, we get pitched, you know, I don't know, maybe 25 to 50 articles every single day that people want to come write for Kivo Daily, and, you know, they're excited about the new publication, which is, it's absolutely awesome. And the worst thing I hate to do is turn people away and, you know, to them to be a contributor, because I know how that feels to get denied. I mean, I've been denied, more times than many people, but it's the persistence and the key of getting accepted is just to continue to try, you know what I'm saying? Just turn new angles and do whatever you can. If you have to pitch to a different editor. But I mean, Kivo Daily has been awesome, because it's really helped me get inside the shoes of the editors at the major publications. So,
so you just mentioned now that the key to getting into some of these places and into your publication is to keep trying and being persistent. So when does being persistent become being an annoyance? Because, you know, it's one thing to be, okay, you try, you get rejected, or you don't get a response, but then you keep trying to the point where the editor is just like, don't email me ever again.
Well, I would say, just to kind of play it safe, I kind of give, like, all of my students, I give them kind of like the 30-day rule. So if you pitch and get denied, don't worry about it. Wait 30 days. But also, I give them I say don't pitch to the same editor anytime over 3 times, because sometimes you can't forget these editors are human. So if they know that you just pitched them 3 times and they absolutely did not like, not even kind of like the single one of them, don't continue to waste your hard earned and effort writing these articles to the same editor that may have formed a negative opinion about you just because of the 3 negative experiences he's had in the past with you. You might want to kind of hop on LinkedIn, whatever, editors at Forbes, editors at, Inc.com, and try to find new connections, or even talk to contributors and see who their editors are. And because at the end of the day, man, these editors, they want good content.
Okay.
So if I were to share an email of, especially a publicly known editor at any of these big publications, 1, they can't be upset, and 2, they should be happy, because if I'm trying to help them, expand expand Forbes.com by getting them quality writers, it's all fair game. So a lot of times you can contact contributors and say, hey, would you mind, sharing the email, the public, only if it's a public email of your editor. I would love to, pitch a few ideas to them and see how that goes. But a lot of them usually say yes to that. It's not a big deal. But if you a lot of the pitch, dude, if your pitch isn't perfect, you're going to be denied, 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
You really want to have in the book that I'm coming out with, it's going to kind of walk you through, it's going to be basically I don't want to say a script, because no pitch should ever, there's no perfect script that you should pitch. It's more of a guidelines and kind of a nice frame that all the readers can use and kind of, plug and play and insert.
A framework to follow, or templates.
Exactly.
Kind of. Okay.
Yeah, just, expand about your bio here, or give your previous articles here, and here. Just a nice little framework to help people out, because people get lost when they're pitching. Sure. They don't know if they want it to be, pitching an essay or pitching, 300 words. So, but the book will talk about all that type of stuff, and it has some really good information on there.
Okay, awesome. And when it comes to working with big corporate clients, because as a member of the Young Entrepreneurs Council, one of the requirements to get in there is you have to have a company that's generating $1 million in revenue and stuff like that. So that means you generated $1 million in revenue before you got in. So talk about working with big corporate clients. I don't know one of your big corporate clients, but how did you start to represent some of these big companies, and how are you able to create a voice for them in some of these platforms so that they come across as humans? Because big corporations, they have a lot of money to spend on traditional marketing, doing billboards. I would say Coca-Cola, because Coca-Cola has billboards everywhere. But how do you create a voice for Coca-Cola on Forbes or Entrepreneur or wherever that it's more personal than what we're all used to, just seeing the billboards and the signs all over the place?
I totally understand where you're coming from. So, it's always harder working with corporations rather than people, because just like any other person, people can relate with other people a lot better than a logo. You know what I'm saying? So you can definitely relate to the CEO of Coca-Cola, but you can't relate to the Coca-Cola logo, because that's all Coca-Cola as. Yeah. So one way to kind of humanize the whole entire brand is getting, for example, the CEO of Coca-Cola or the CEO of Nike or Under Armour to be published on these big publications, either as a contributor himself or a featured guest, just like like an honored guest on your podcast right now. But what you want to do is you want to take the people out of the corporate side of the business and kind of them into the public, because so people can relate to the CEO of Coca-Cola just like a normal human being. So it's more of sucking people out of the business more than having people relate to the business and logo itself. So I would say, for example, let's just say Coca-Cola was my client, for example, which that would be cool, but right?
Yeah.
I got them on Forbes too, which is funny. But anyways, I would take, I don't know this. Let's just say the CEO's name is, John, for example. I would take John, and I would basically make him the thought leader, and I'm sure he already is. But I would basically just get him into all the biggest publications. I would get him on billboards himself. And yes, Coca-Cola would be, a big, main topic of whatever the article would be about, because you still want to add value to Coca-Cola. You never want to pull away from the business, especially because that's where, their big moneymaker is. but you really want to pull the people out of the corporation. So that's my biggest thing. That's my biggest answer. And then also too is having the corporations interact with the community as much as possible. Okay. So let's just say it was, for example, social media, Instagram. Well, instead of a video, just having, your typical, cracking open a Coca-Cola, can and, drinking it down on a hot summer day, I would make it more of like doing some type of community outreach or something, just so people can really relate. And with any brand, you want people to want to buy from you. You don't necessarily want to sell to people, so yeah, I mean, obviously, brand or corporations are a lot harder than just influencers or entrepreneurs because everybody can relate to them. But that's probably my biggest advice is just pulling the people out.
Okay. And in terms of pulling the people out, there are many companies that kind of don't want their employees to shine on their own. So how would you balance that? Because take, for example, there's another company, X-Cola, for example. They're like, okay, yeah, we're advertising, but we don't want to make our director of marketing the star because maybe he'll get a big head, he'll become more valuable, and he'll want to start shopping around to see if he can get money somewhere else and move, So we want to keep it in-house. How do you work with companies like that?
That's a great question. So in that scenario, if the corporation doesn't want to pull their employees out, like their C-level executives out from underneath, well, then the easiest solution to that is, okay, we'll bring people to you. So then we'll bring Tony Robbins, we'll bring Gary Vee, we'll bring the biggest influencers that already have a great positive name for themselves. Again, always want to stay niche specific, but that's the idea is we pull, maybe some athletes or something, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James towards Coca-Cola, just like Nike does. Obviously, all the biggest sports players in the world are always on the commercials. They're always doing that. You don't really see, like, the CEO of Nike isn't really an outspoken person who's the thought leader or even icon of Nike. When people think of Nike, they think of Kobe Bryant. They think of LeBron James, all the big NBA, NFL stars, because that was Nike's method of really branding itself. If you look on Nike's social media, you don't see a whole bunch of Nike stuff. You see a whole bunch of lifestyle stuff. Yeah. And that's where Nike wins, is because Nike's doing a great job with, they almost brand people around Nike. They don't brand Nike around people. That's why they're winning in the game of, the sports apparel industry, because ultimately they have the best marketing team in the world. Nobody, Adidas, nobody can touch Nike because of what they've done. And that's just, as of now. Obviously everything can change in the future, but so they've really brought the biggest influencers, and it all comes down to influencer marketing, as a lot of people know about. If you have for example, a beauty product, and you're like, oh my gosh, how do I get it out there? It's very, very simple. Go out there and hire the highest beauty and fashion gurus in the industry. Have them talk about your product and tell people how much they love it. And then it's going to spread like a wildfire, because people can relate to the influencer. People follow the influencer because they're fans and they're obsessed with whatever they do, whatever they wear. So if you slap a solid beauty product on, some of those women's face, then your product's going to blow up like crazy. It's very, very simple.
And is there a major difference between becoming an influencer and a thought leader? Because sometimes to me it sounds like there are overlaps, but when you look at it on platforms like Instagram, like you mentioned, it seems influencers are people that try to naturally push something to their followers, whereas thought leaders are selling their ideas about what they know so that they can attract people to them. So
that's right. Yeah, no, that's a good question, because if for example, a thought leader, when I envision a thought leader, it's more of your Elon Musk, a Tesla guy, because he's not. Yes, he is an influencer in a way of influencing the community of tech and automotive, but at the same time, he's more of an industry leader with what he does. And I say that because he's kind of the first of his kind to do all that crazy stuff that he's done with like the electric cars and all that cool stuff, going to like the moon, and I believe he's done that, but I know with like the SpaceX and all that, he's done stuff, and he's a thought leader in that industry. But when it comes to being an influencer, you kind of think more of kind of like a Gary Vee or
exactly
Robbins, like they're more so in the public's eye, influencing their audience to do something, not necessarily. Like Elon Musk is more of a thought leader, because he doesn't. I don't want to say he doesn't care if he influences others, it's more like he just does and people follow.
Yes, he gets his ideas out there, and whether you
Yeah,
take it or not. Yeah.
I would say, dude, the biggest thing to differentiate, a thought leader and influencer is that a thought leader basically, like, they just do something and then people follow it. Not necessarily they're trying to push things. It's more like they're creators of something, and when you're an influencer, you're more influential of a certain topic.
Okay. And as we start to wind down the show, looking at the trajectory of your career thus far, the things you have done, where are some of the opportunities going forward? Like we're getting to the last quarter of the year, or the last third of the year. Where do you see some opportunities going forward for people to try and stand out and get their voices out there? Because a lot of people will look around and say, hey, Instagram seems saturated. Does it need another beauty blogger? Does it need another makeup video tutorial? Do I need to write one more extra article on marketing? So where are some opportunities you see given your background thus far?
Do you mean more for like an entrepreneur that's looking to, like, a budding entrepreneur?
Yeah, a budding entrepreneur. Yeah, like a young.
I would say the best advice that I could give is always be 5 years ahead of today. So if you're, you know what I'm saying? So, like, yes, it's good to always be present as far as, like, your living and lifestyle and as far as, like, your mental state. But if you can always look around the bend and see where things are coming before others can, like, for example, podcasts. 5 years ago, nobody did podcasts. True. But then a lot of people started, like Gary Vee, he's a huge advocate of podcasts because he basically saw where the trajectory was going. And, oh my gosh, a lot of people are going to video and audio, and just like YouTube, they just hit over, like, I don't know, 1 trillion or something, whatever it was, subscribers and views.
Everybody's getting to 1 trillion these days.
Yeah, man, it's too easy these days. That's the problem. But I mean, yeah, I think the biggest thing is looking ahead and getting to where you need to be as fast as you can before others get there. Because everybody can start up a podcast, or everybody can have, an Instagram account. I mean, geez, it takes 2 seconds to do any of these, these big profiles. But, creating a big personal brand and a big following that you actually respect, that you really truly care about your following, and you care about, the information that you feed them. I think that's probably key to winning, because if you can be ahead of the game and also share your knowledge with your community and followers, that's going to help you grow exponentially, because people are going to respect what you do if you're constantly giving people value. That's a good rule too. If you're constantly giving people value, one, you're always going to have a respect from people, but you're always going to have a following, because if you're always giving people value, what's there not to follow?
Yes.
So I would say just, be ahead of the game as much as you can, and, do a lot of research. And I mean, there's articles coming out every day, projecting the next big either social media or, what have you. But I think just always keeping your eye out for the future and predicting it, but most importantly, acting on it is probably the most beneficial thing anybody can do. And also too, like, sticking with what actually works. I know a lot of people have the winning recipe, but they're always trying to cook something else. Yeah. It's like it's kind of like the story with the diamonds in your backyard. It's like people have diamonds in their backyard and they're always trying to, go out, drive miles away from their house. Yeah. But really, it's like, stick with what works, because that's what works. I mean, you can tweak things around a little bit, but if hey, PR and personal branding is your niche, and it makes a solid living doing it, why quit that and start something else? Unless obviously you don't enjoy it. Obviously, follow your passion. But yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing, man. It's just, follow your passion and just continue setting goals and, making sure that you're looking around the bend and getting there before everybody else does.
Okay, awesome. And I look at your website and I see that you have a couple other projects in addition to Kivo Daily. So talk about your other projects that you work on in the Kivo Media Group.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff with, we do. Basically, Kivo Media Group is a conglomerate of, like, Kivo Daily, Mention Worth, and we have, Kivo, a lot of, like, Kivo Web Designs or Kivo Designs, which is basically like your website development and your SEO and your anything related to websites. That's what Kivo Designs is. Mention Worth is more the PR sector of it. Okay. Just like it sounds, we help people get brands and public figures mentioned in big publications. And then Kivo Daily is obviously the the big publication that I've been working on for the last several months. But I'm always looking to expand, man. There's always new opportunities that are coming my way, so I'm always open to new things and just to jump on the next big thing.
Awesome. And I guess my final question is, talk to us not a question, but more like a statement. So tell us a little bit more about the upcoming course you have for helping people become thought leaders and contributing to big publications.
Yeah, so basically I'll leave it out on this. Basically, it's very straightforward. It's how to leverage PR, how to leverage public relations to grow your personal brand. So a lot of personal brand, a lot of people that have their own personal brand, they're always wondering like, well, what can I do to grow it? The number one way to efficiently grow your personal brand, in my opinion, is to get featured on the big publications. Because if you're in the biggest publications, for example, let's just say you get featured in Forbes. Well, now you can say, a Forbes featured entrepreneur or whatever it is. You can start basically authority, credibility hacking off of and piggybacking off these big publications. So you can start connecting your name to Forbes Inc. and Entrepreneur or whatever big publication it is. So, and that, honestly, the biggest thing that does, it does add credibility. Obviously, it gets a lot of exposure to your brand and to your website and social media because there's millions of people that are, looking at these articles every single month. But basically this course, it's going to walk you through the beginning stage, kind of like your 0 to hero guide, walking from beginning to end. If you were, just starting out in the personal branding industry and trying to figure out, well, first of all, what is personal branding? Because everybody has their own personal brand. It's either they're making their personal brand up for themselves or they're allowing others to create it for them. So it's kind of harnessing and taking control of your own personal brand and then shaping it and forming it into whatever you want it to look like, whether it's in the business industry, whether it's an influencer, whether it's in the, sports industry, any industry, it really doesn't matter, but it's not going to be like a novel either. It's going to be about 100 pages long and it's still in the works right now. It'll probably be done within the next 60 days and I'll work with publishing and stuff like that. But yeah, it's basically your guide of how to leverage PR to successfully grow your personal brand. Okay. It's very straightforward, but it's going to be very beneficial for the any personal brand out there, especially if they haven't had press yet. It'll teach them how to also how to successfully get press and stuff like that.
Okay, and I guess listening to that tells me that it is beneficial for a company to actually push their employees to create personal brands because that creates a personal connection with their target market, and then that leads to a natural state to do business with them. Correct?
Yeah. I mean, I've worked with people that have landed deals with Damon John on Shark Tank. I've dealt people that have employees of Google. So I've helped out a ton of people that are creating their personal brands and just kind of consulting them on the proper ways to do it and where to land certain placements, what to say, because obviously just because you land on Forbes, okay, well, what does Forbes say about you? Yeah. Just because you're on Forbes and yes, it's cool. You can say featured in Forbes and whatever else, but what is the content that's on there? If it's not converting content, it's cool, but it's not very beneficial. Yeah. So more importantly, you want to have beneficial content on these big publications, especially when some people only get one shot in their lifetime to get on Forbes. You want to be sure it's you're gonna go out with a bang.
Yeah, true. Well, my friend, it's been a pleasure talking to you for the past 45 minutes or so. I think I feel like I can actually keep asking questions and keep going.
I love it.
I want to stay respectful of your time. So before I let you go, tell people where they can find you, reach out to you, and possibly make a connection with you if they want to learn more about you and what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. So the website is Dillon Kivo, DILLON KIV as in Victor O.com. And then all the social media handles for Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, they're all the same spelling, no underscores, anything, just Dillon Kivo.
Okay, awesome. And I'll be sure to link that on the show notes page once this episode is edited and ready to go live. So Dillon, thanks for coming to share your story and your words of wisdom. I truly appreciate you taking the time to come and teach us a little bit more about how to build our personal brands through thought leadership.
Perfect. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into the show today. If you love what you hear on today's episode of the podcast, Go to iTunes and leave a review and a comment. It helps other great listeners like yourself find the show. And of course, you can always find more episodes of the Bulletproof Entrepreneur Podcast at www.odogwu.com.